We're breaking down prospects at every draft pick for the Suns. The one thing is for sure, I know nobody will panic if they take a Maryland big man at 10. Ayrton, you can click it this time.
Just making sure we don't get a repeat of yesterday.
Psychos and sickos unite for a jam-packed edition of PHNX Suns right here on a Tuesday, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. App participating locations, terms, and conditions apply. I'm Erik, that's Gerald, we've got Stephen, we got the Freckled Mamba, Ayrton behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. But of course, the most important people, all of you joining us live in the chat on YouTube after the fact, our wonderful audio listeners, and hell, I'll throw our TV viewers in there as well, since I don't usually do that. Because today we have ourselves quite a show. And why not? Because Kevin Durant just got traded. In case you didn't know that, the Suns have the 10th overall pick plus 3 more in tomorrow's NBA draft. And there is more news and other things surfacing that we'll unpack later this week. But man, we have a lot to get into today. We have 2 fantastic guests that we'll get into here in just a second. But before that, I want to remind everybody that we have a die-hard intro offer sale right now for just $36. Not only do you get every single one of Gerald's articles unlocked at gophnx.com, you get a free hat or t-shirt every single year. You get access to our die-hard only draft tracker that we have going here at ALLCITY with breakdowns of every prospect that you can look at in the first round. Plus, you get access to our die-hard Discord, discounts to all of our events, so on and so forth. $36 intro offer right now. gophnx.com/join. We'll be live tomorrow at 4:45 for a full draft show. The day after that, we'll be live at 5. How are we feeling, boys, as we get through a jam-packed week?
Feeling good, feeling tired, running on fumes. Make sure to take advantage of that sale right now. I've written 4 articles in the last 72 hours.
And he has a child.
And I have a child, which I need to tend to at some point this week. So make sure to buy a diehard membership now while it's cheap. And honestly, our shirts are like 20 some bucks. So you're getting a shirt for free just for signing up. So yeah, good value. Stephen, how you doing today?
Well, the tone was much better than yesterday, so that's a start. Everything else is aligned. I'm looking forward to talking with both of the guests that we have today on both of the topics that we have set for today's episode. So let's get to it.
Yeah, our second guest today will be a TV reporter out of Houston, good friend of mine. His name is Chancellor Johnson. He's going to break things down from a Kevin Durant perspective from Houston. But first, from No Ceilings draft coverage and somebody who is an absolute mastermind when it comes to the NBA draft, let's bring in Stephen Gillaspie to talk about not just number 10, but number 29, number 52, number 59. Man, it is your busy season, Stephen. So thank you for taking some time to join us.
Great name, by the way. I think it's a pretty cool one. No bias.
Let's go.
I think my mom would like that name too, actually.
It's a beautiful name. It's spelt biblically too, which helps. But
absolutely.
Erik, Gerald, Stephen, I appreciate y'all having me on, man. I'm excited to be here and talk some draft.
Man, I think this draft is absolutely fascinating. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself like a draft guy, but I love this time of year. I love college hoops and especially kind of figuring out who's going to make that next step at the next level. And one thing that I've definitely picked up over the last couple of weeks, really diving deep, is that there are a lot of different opinions on this class as a whole. There's a lot of movement in all of the rounds. What is your overarching opinion on the 2025 NBA draft class?
I think that it's a good draft class. I don't know if I would call it generational, but I mean, from last year when we had approximately 6 guys that you could realistically make a case for going number 1, you'll take a Cooper Flag at the top. You'll take a Dylan Harper in a tier unto himself. And then you get into fun discussions on who you think might go 3rd overall. So this is a very fun draft. It's one to be excited about, especially with the team that has a top 10 pick.
Yeah, it is very nice. As much as the Kevin Durant trade was kind of underwhelming for a lot of people here in Phoenix, they get their own pick back. They get a top 10 selection in a draft that, according to a lot of people, the first 7 or 8 prospects are kind of not set in stone, but those are guys that are expected to be off the board. And then from that point on, it's really kind of beauty in the eye of the beholder. So I guess we'll just start right off the top. If you were the Suns at number 10, who are you taking?
So it gets tricky because in this like 7 through 10 range, there's some prospects that we're hearing about over at No Ceilings that if they could be taken in this range, but if they're not, you could see a free fall upwards to like, the 18 through 20 range. For the Suns, I know that it's very wing oriented for the team right now on paper, very guard heavy, especially at the 2. I don't know if I would necessarily reach for need depending who is on the board. I'll tell you a guy that I'm really high on that I actually have 9th on my big board is Cedric Coward out of Washington State. Now, I know he only played 6 games for Washington State this year, but there's a certain level of safety with him, for one, that you can just bank on. At every stop that he's been at up into Washington State, he's been a reliable floor spacer. So no matter which way Phoenix wants to go, if they want to build around D-Book with a championship aspirations at some point, or if they want to kind of tear it down and start over, floor spacing makes any sort of team organization a lot better. So you got a guy who year over year has been an outstanding 3-point shooter. He ranked in the 96th and 99th percentiles his last 2 years in college basketball, respectively. On top of that, this is a guy who scored a lot in the post. Now, I know that might sound weird for a guy who's kind of wing-oriented, but what that tells me is this is a guy who's a mismatch punisher. He's going to take a small guy into the block and do work, and he's quick enough and long enough to get around these smaller type of players that could look to guard him. So I love the fact that he punishes mismatches. He measured in barefoot at 6'5.25", but had a 7'2.25" wingspan. I mean, this dude is built in the lab to play in the NBA. So I know that some people might be wanting a point guard. I know that some people might be wanting a 5. If he is on the board for Phoenix, I just feel like there's a certain level of safety and still some upside. We were robbed of a full last year of him at Washington State. Very determined guy, wants to get better at all the things that he needs to get better at, particularly his handle, but he's got time to do that in Phoenix, in my opinion.
That is a guy who popped in his 6 games, even though his season was ended prematurely by the labrum tear. He was, for those of you who haven't checked out the article at gophnx.com, he was one of my 5 prospects I really like for the Suns at number 10 as well. And I know Stephen is high on Cedric Coward as well.
Yeah, Stephen, not me speaking to myself, speaking to you, Stephen.
Yes, sir.
While we're on the topic of Cedric, I call him Ceddy said, I'm curious, what have been your thoughts about his defense? Because I feel like for all the attention his offense gets, that might be the side of the floor where his impact might be felt immediately upon stepping into the NBA realm.
Yeah, I mean, Seti said has incredible tools and pops on the defensive end. I mean, he tied for the 9th largest hands at the combine. If you're into these measurements, these could just be completely meaningless, right? But if you like them, it's supporting evidence, dang it. I like him a lot because he had a steal percentage of 1.4, 1.6, 2.1 the past 3 years. So he's active on the defensive end. And then for blocks, this is where he really shines as a wing defender. He had block percentages of 5.3, 3.7, and 3.2. 5.7 is almost as much as Kamal Malawach had this year at Duke, right? So this is a fantastic defensive guy. He rebounds well. And again, the fact that he can space the floor, you got a true 3-and-D prospect just waiting literally in the wings for your team. I think that he's the best player available. I get that there are greater needs. I don't know if with the 10th pick you draft for need. You just get the guy that makes the most sense who can contribute on your team.
There are specific names that I definitely want to ask you about. But before we lead you down that path, you start with Cedric Coward. Is there another name that if they're there at 10, you're running to the podium for the Phoenix Suns and selecting them?
Yeah, Eric, I heard that you mentioned something about a Maryland big man potentially being drafted at 10. I might be down to break some fans' hearts a little bit. Listen, I love Derek Queen out of Maryland. He has all the skill in the world. I comp him to like a Boogie Cousins light, and he's got a little, I don't know what I can say and what I can't say on the show. I'll just say he's got some nastiness to his game. He could be a real jerk on the basketball court. And I like that in my big man. There's some other big men in this class that are said to be great big men, but they play too polite. I don't want that. I want a goon in the paint, and that's what I see with Derek Queen. On top of that, on top of just being a jerk and a complete, utter, nuisance in a good way, I think that he just moves like an NBA player. He's got tons of feel. You watch him dribble a basketball, and your jaw just like hits the floor immediately. He just moves like an NBA guy. I know that the defensive effort stuff is going to get called into question, but you can't lie to me and tell me I didn't see with my own eyes him lock up Kasparis Yakashonis out of Illinois on the perimeter on multiple occasions when they played. So I know deep down in there's some real stuff to him on the defensive end. But I mean, you got a guy who shot a true shooting percentage of 59.1, rebounded like crazy. And for those of you who kind of follow what translates between college and the pros, rebounding for any position is typically a great indicator for future success in the NBA. Offensive rebound percentage of 9, defensive rebound percentage of 24.5. We're talking about defensive stuff, still great block numbers at 3.8% this year and still percentage. So this guy has agile hands and moves fluidly for a big man, still percentage of 2. He had 23 dunks in the half court. That speaks to the nastiness on the offensive end. He's got a good free throw percentage, draws a lot of contact. And for those worried about how his shot may or may not, kind of project from beyond at the next level, he did only shoot 20% on his threes, but he's got a good free throw percentage and he ranked in the 81st percentile from the mid range. So if you're looking at big men, typically what helps translate their shot, free throw, mid range, and just natural touch and ability. I love him as an offensive guy. Think he's being slept on a little bit on the defensive end. I have him at 4th on my big board. At 10, he's an absolute steal. And if we're looking at needs for Phoenix, he's a big man, guys.
I think the big thing for me is I'm not the highest on him, but the intangibles, that gritty, blue-collar nastiness that we're talking about, the team just simply didn't have last season. You got it with Dylan Brooks, obviously, with the trade, and you would get it with Derek Queen as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've had my defensive concerns, but it's reassuring to hear you talk about him because we have heard some buzz about Derek Queen being someone that they might have in their sights there at number 10. I wanted to ask you about a more polarizing prospect, someone that has been in the building with the Suns for a draft workout, someone that is from Michigan, so we definitely cannot count out with going to the Suns. Danny Wolf. I feel like he has very mixed opinions on what he could be. Where do you kind of stand on Danny Wolf? A guy that, potentially if 10 feels a little high, but if the Suns find the right trade to trade back a few slots, might be a guy that's in their consideration.
Depending on who you ask at No Ceilings, Gerald, he could be as high as 10 on someone's big board. I have him at 17, and I really want to put him higher on my board. But to me, if I'm drafting a big man, I want to know a couple of things. With his skill set, I worry about his potential to kind of toggle either back and forth between the 4 and the 5, like I feel like Derek Queen could do. And if he's just an offensive guy, like how good is the defense going to translate at the next level? I feel like if Phoenix is wanting to target a 5, they either got to blow you away on the offense or versatility aspect, or they got to be a defensive stopper, right? And the defensive stopper is where I fall a little bit short with Wolf. But I mean, this guy, for the first time in his college career, came over to Michigan and essentially played point guard. The most plays that he ran for Michigan was as a pick and roll ball handler, for crying out loud. But I loved him at Yale. I love the fact that he could play mean and nasty in the paint. I believe in the offense a lot. He is projected to be as a dribble pass shoot guy. The shot is a little bit of the question mark. I know he took tough shots at Michigan. I worry about the consistency in that regard. So I know why people like him. I get the idea of him. I just don't know if he's going to bring enough intensity to be a full-time 5 defensively. And if the shot doesn't translate greater than what we saw him shoot this year at Michigan, then I worry about what the special is with him at the NBA level.
With Jordan not having spent time with Evan Mobley last season and running a ton of inverted pick and rolls, Danny Wolf will be a piece that aligns directly with that in kind of a copy and paste fashion, even if his jump shot isn't necessarily to the level that Evans is. I'm curious, though. I have a name that I've been excited about. I'm curious what your thoughts are on Nick Clifford.
Oh, man, you're speaking my language. I have Neek 10th on my big board. I love Neek Clifford. There's a lot of us at No Ceilings that say they love him. No one loves him more than me. I think I'm a bigger fan of him than his mom is. I think the biggest things about him is that people worry about the shot being true. I don't know what else you want the guy to do who shot over 37% in consecutive years and each year increased the volume. He was essentially the team's de facto point guard. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have him 10 because I think that he's a superstar. But what I am going to sit here and tell you is I think he's going to be a legit NBA player for a long time. And what gives me so much assurance, and something that the NBA tells us that they value with their role players, is at some point they have to have shown you that they're the man, right? They have to know what the man needs. And you don't know what the man needs unless at some point you've been the man. So that's why I'm so high on Neek Clifford. For the past 2 years at Colorado State, loved the decision from him to stay at Colorado State. Thought it was an awesome move for him to continue to grow on the offensive end. Shown playmaking. He's shown defense. I mean, my goodness, he has had a steal and block percentage over 2 while being the offensive hub. That shows consistency. That shows grit, determination, hustle, all the coach talk stuff that you want to hear from a player. He's got it all in spades. He's just skilled, man. I love him so much.
There are a ton of names that we want to throw at you. Before I throw a couple that I feel like won't be there at 10, but maybe might slide, I want to remind everybody to hit that like button. We're going to be talking Katie at the end of the show. Obviously, we're jumping in the draft right now with Stephen Gillaspie from No Ceilings. Of course, No Ceilings just does incredible NBA draft work. Make sure you go ahead and check out their YouTube channel and everything that they do when it comes to this time of year. It's honestly incredible, and we love promoting people who do things the right way, and they definitely fall into that category. Okay, literally, we have somebody in the chat saying, you can't believe that you said the 3 guys that they like the most, and asking if you have a show. Do you want to let people know where they can find you if they're digging what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. NoCeilingsNBA.com. We have links to all of our stuff, including our YouTube channel, Erik, that you just so graciously plugged for me. I didn't even have to pay you any money. That was awesome. But yeah,
I'll give you my Venmo after. Don't worry.
Hey, okay, I'm good for it. Just go ahead and follow us at NoCeilingsNBA.com, YouTube at NoCeilingsNBA. And if you want to follow little old me on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it nowadays, that's where I'm most active, at Stephen, spelled Stephen the right way, the letter G, and then hoops.
Man,
right.
The biggest smile on this dude's face.
We went from Coward to Clifford to spelling the name the right way. Kindred spirits, my man. I'm
with you. I need a bucket hat, man. Come on, let's go.
That would be sick.
I'll send one in the mail if the Suns end up drafting one of those 2 guys. I got you.
We dropped so many.
I'll wear it every day.
Okay, there are a couple names I think our fans would consider malpractice if I didn't throw them at you. Get your opinions and if they'll be there at 10. Let's start with Kamen Malawak out of Duke, a very raw prospect, 7'2". There's a lot of upsides. I think there are a lot of concerns. Most likely not going to be there at 10. Is that what you expect out of him?
I really don't know what to expect with him. I've heard as high as 4, and I've heard as low as 12. You know, I know that there are a lot of teams that need big men. Like I said, that 7, 8, 9, 10 range is going to be very telling for the rest of the draft. That's where it gets interesting. I like him to a degree. I have him 13th on my board. I understand that he's huge. What I spoke about Derek Queen earlier with the mean and the nasty, I don't see enough of that with Kaman Malawak. Now, he's got the frame, and he's only been playing basketball as long as Ryan Kalkbrenner's been in college basketball. So I know that he's still relatively young and new to the game. And the rebounding stuff, even throwing the March Madness game where he had 0 rebounds out of the window, there was a lot of games where he underperformed. That block percentage, like I said, was barely better than Cedric Coward. And my man's as big as Cedric Coward's wingspan, right? So there are a lot of things to like. He could be a lob threat. He could be a real good screen setter. He can bolster the team as a rim protector. I don't know if teams are necessarily going to be scared of him in the NBA because they weren't in college. And I worry about the hands being consistent on the offensive end.
That makes sense. Something I reported over the weekend right after the Kevin Durant trade was that the Suns are going to be looking at bigs. They're going to be looking at 6'8", 6'9", forward types with that number 10 pick. We've talked about a couple of really good wings, Cedric Coward, Neek Clifford. We would be remiss if we did not ask you about the local Arizona kid, Carter Bryant. Where does he kind of stack up? To me, he feels like more of a long-term project, but a more defensively inclined guy who could potentially guard 3 or 4 positions at the next level if the shot continues to, expand and develop and maybe get a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I have him 7th on my board, and And it's not because I look at a superstar upside. I think that he could just be like a star in his role type dude. At Arizona, he literally had to claw, bite, and scratch to show that he belonged on the court. And it took Coach Lloyd a long time to realize, hey, my team is actually better when this guy's on the court. I should probably give him more minutes. That was frustrating just as a draft fan to watch. I like Carter Bryant, and I wanted to see more of him, and I'm a little bit selfish. But I think that the three-point shot showed to be consistent. That's his foot in the door on the offensive end. Defensively, that's where he's the nastiest. I mean, a true 2 through 4 defender, in my opinion, at the NBA level. The big knock that you're going to hear about Carter Bryant is that nothing that he did essentially was self-created. So that kind of caps the star potential, in my opinion, with him. But I do think that the ultimate high-end upside that some of the guys that know ceilings will agree with is like an OG Anunoby, who's still a very good player, still going to be very valuable on a trade market. I mean, look at trades that we've seen recently for like a Mikal Bridges and a Desmond Bane. The high-end upside for a guy like Carter Bryant could be similar to that of an OG Anunoby.
Another name that we've spent a lot of time kind of just mulling over the thought of, and it's come with some question marks, but I watched you do a film session on him not too long ago. Colin Murray Boyles. And there's a lot of attention around the name. There's been some NBA comps, and I know what you said about it, but I want to let you kind of give it to people a little more fresh and maybe have some updated thoughts that I haven't been privy to.
Yeah, so Colin Murray Boyles is an interesting player because it's going to drive people crazy, but the player that you could compare him most to is he who shall not be named in the draft community, Draymond Green. You will get thrown into draft Twitter jail if you compare anybody to Draymond Green. But that's really who he reminds people of, is because he's not a tall, big man. He's roughly about 6'8" in tennis shoes, depending on what shoes he's wearing. But the thing that I love about him is he's so defensively versatile. He can play on the perimeter. He can guard in the paint. This man just made Janai Broom look like a child, even though he is older than him by a few years, right? I love the fact that he's tough. I love that he's nasty. He competes on the glass. Again, rebounding typically translates, especially at that big man position. And on top of all of that, he has a lot of feel as a passer. Now, he did make a tiny step of improvement in attempting threes. He didn't really make a whole heck of a lot of them. I like him. I have him around 12th on my big board. I think that there is a lot to love about him. I really do. Some people are just going to get hung up on the three-point shot, and it's going to take a real specific type of scheme for him to reach his high-end upside. I don't know how many teams are willing to throw the keys to a Colin Murray Boyles, though, who still, even though he's a sophomore, is freshman age. You're looking at him in the same vein as like how old Derek Queen is this year as a true freshman. So still a lot of upside to his game.
I could throw names at you for hours. Been really enjoying hearing what you have to say. I want to get to 29 and then the second round here in a second because we'll have a couple more minutes with you. We here as a crew, though, and by we, I mean me and Gerald, are split on Yegor Devin out of BYU. Real quick, is that somebody that you would consider at 10? Like, is that an okay evaluation for him?
I wouldn't say so. He's too thin. The defense is inconsistent, and he can't shoot. And he's going to have the ball in his hands to be the most realized version of himself. It's going to take a specific type of team. Look at what happened to Josh Giddey. We got the best version of him when he was kicked off a winning team. So that's kind of where I am with Yegor Devin.
Oh, well, that makes me sad. Let's move on because that's Gerald's opinion and not mine. That's okay. It's fine. It's okay. Hand up.
I'm wrong all the time too, Eric. Don't worry about it.
29. You know, we mentioned at the beginning of this that there's a lot of movement. I've seen a ton of different names in the late 20s. What is a dream scenario for you? The Suns are they're taking this player at 29.
This is more of a nightmare for me, but this will be a dream for Phoenix Suns fans because Rasheer Fleming is really high on my board. I have him in the lottery range. My dude is a beast. He junior prospect, 6'8" and a quarter inch without shoes and a 7'5" and a quarter inch wingspan. What really stood out to me this year, why I really took him seriously, is that he took threes, more difficult threes, and he converted them. He shot 43.1% on 58 open three-point shots, and he shot almost 37% on over 100 guarded three-point shots, totaling 39%. So that's a great spacing big man. On top of that, my man weighs 235 pounds. So he's coming in ready to play in the NBA, and he's an incredible defender. Blocking percentage of almost 5, steal percentage of almost 2.7. And to speak to the defensive mentals, I'm not a big stat guy only, but this helps kind of contextualize what you will watch on film with him. He had 103 stocks, that's 103 steals and blocks combined, to only 88 fouls as a defensive-minded guy, right? So just a 3-and-D dynamo. There's potential for him to be kind of a variant of a center as well, which I know will help Phoenix a lot. The only thing is that he is a play finisher, not necessarily a play extender yet. But at only 21 years old, I know that I was still growing, at least outwardly, not upwardly, at 21. And he can continue to improve that. A lot of talent evaluators will tell you the two things that are easiest to fix in the NBA are the shot and the handle. And I think he's got the shot. If we can get that handle to just passable and help him make a little bit more better decisions, you're looking at an absolute steal at 29.
Last one I had for you at 29. We've seen two potential stretch 5 prospects for the Suns have workouts here. If Ryan Kalkbrenner and Reynaud are both on the board, which one are you taking?
I'm taking Kalkbrenner, and everybody knows that I am not the biggest Reynaud guy. I watched him play live at Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech had a guy on the team by the name of Ibrahim Soare, who was 6'8", listed at 220, 230. He looked a lot lighter, and he just made Maxime Reynaud's life a living heck on the defensive end. I don't think that he's as good as a passer as Ryan Kalkbrenner. And eerily enough, even though Reynaud is labeled to be a shooter, they both had roughly the same 3-point percentage. I know that Reynaud was on higher efficiency. I get all of that. But between the two of them too, you get Kalkbrenner, who was essentially like 10 years in a row the Big East Defensive Player of the Year in college basketball. So you know that you're getting the important things for a big man with him, plus the upside that he developed his ball handling, decision-making, and three-point shot this past season at Creighton.
And we'll kind of close you out with this one, looking at second-round projected guys. Well, not technically second-round projected, but one of them is, and one of them might be kind of on the borderline. Everybody that knows me knows I'm big on point guards, and point guards that come from NBA type of systems in college that also have winning that came with that, I feel like translates to the NBA. So I'm looking at Walter Clayton Jr. and I'm looking at Ryan Nembhard. What are your thoughts on those two, and how do you think those two will translate to the NBA level?
Listen, I love both Florida guards. I'm a big Elijah Martin guy, but Walter Clayton Jr., he's underrated as an athlete. I recently did a show where I spoke to who I thought was the most kind of deceptive SGA-like athlete. And to me, I was like, okay, who have I never heard be mentioned as an athlete? It was Walter Clayton Jr. The lowest block percentage that he's had as like a 6'2" guard was 1.4. So this man can get up and contest shots. He's a steals guy too. He took over, I want to say it was close to, I might be lying. Please just look it up yourself if you don't believe me. But it was roughly 200 dribble jumper threes. And that to me speaks to his ability to stop and start on a dime, core strength, body control, and the ability to just hang in the air a little bit longer than the defense can contest it. I'm a little bit lower on Ryan Nembhard, who, because he just weighs 175 pounds and he's under 6 feet tall, it's hard for those guys to stick. I get that he's smart. I get that he had 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, an assist percentage, a gaudy assist percentage of over 41, good steals percentage. He shot over 40% on kind of moderate volume. I get all of that. It's just really hard to succeed in the NBA if you're that small and you weigh that little. He's going to have to put in some work to see the NBA floor consistently.
Man, Stephen, the people in here, they love you. We already have people in the chat saying they just went and subscribed to No Ceilings. We have absolutely just loved this conversation. We'll definitely have to have you back once this draft is wrapped up so we can get your opinion on who the Suns actually took. I want just one name of a second-round guy that maybe you're higher on. Just a name, no explanation, that you're maybe higher on than most, that maybe the Suns can get with 52 or 59.
If he's there, run to the podium for Elijah Martin. He probably won't be there, but if he is, sprint to the podium for Elijah Martin.
Awesome. Right. Wonderful. Perfect. You can follow Stephen at Stephen G Hoops. Of course, subscribe to No Ceilings NBA, covering the draft and hoops just in general, breaking it down the right way. Stephen, thank you so much for being so gracious with your time with us today.
Man, thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it. Much love to Stephen. I just got to say it for the name, but I love all you guys. I'm here anytime you need me.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. Make sure you follow Stephen G Hoops. And yeah, this Stephen guy likes him too. All right, guys. Chancellor Johnson from Houston will be joining us here in just a second. But first, we're going to take our first break. Listen, the Suns, I wouldn't say they doubled up their draft picks. Oh, yeah, they did double up their draft picks. You can double up your rewards with Mountain America Credit Union. They're committed to helping their more than 1 million members through 100 branches throughout the West. And right now, through July 31st, you can get 2 times the points on rewards credit card purchases. And you can do that on everything. It's perfect for gas, groceries, travel, home projects, and all other purchases like diapers. Gerald, so many diapers.
So many.
But you can get 2 times the points at Mountain America Credit Union. It's an easy way to stretch your dollar since you earn twice as many rewards. Redeem your double points for things like travel rebates, gift cards for more diapers, and event tickets. It's a limited time only. Take advantage of it while you can. Get details at macu.com/double. Loans are on approved credit. Offer can change or be withdrawn at any time. It's a limited time offer and terms and conditions apply. At Mountain America Credit Union, get double the amount of points on your credit card purchases. And we love saving you money and we love good deals. That's why joining the Inner Circle for free is the best one. Not only will you get 25 cents off your first 5 fill-ups when you're filling up on gas and 3 cents off per gallon every day after that, eventually bumping up to 5 if you use it enough. You get plenty of other member-exclusive deals just by putting in your phone number, just by putting in your email on the Circle K app for free. I'm talking 79-cent Polar Pops. I'm talking 99-cent Frosters, 3 for $7 Ghost energy drinks, 3 for $5 28-ounce Gatorades and 20-ounce Gatorade Lights, and you can save 30 cents per gallon on fuel when you buy 3 Celsiuses, and they have a Circle K exclusive flavor for all 3 of those drinks that I mentioned, because Circle K is just the place to be. I'm personally loving the cracked pepper and sea salt chips that they've been having, but the jalapeno ones, they are the OGs for me. They're still probably my favorite. But whatever type of food you want, if you want hot food, if you want chips, if you want snacks, if you want a drink, Circle K has it, plus deals on gas as well. All you gotta do, join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details. All right. Chance is having a little bit of difficulty on Chrome, so he's going to call in here in just a second. I'm going to let him know he can call in whenever, but as we just reset here, how are we feeling, guys, after what was an awesome draft conversation?
I feel good. I have been a lot lower on Derek Queen, I think, because of the defensive concerns. So it was good to hear somebody that's more of an expert in the field talk about he feels like he showed signs that he could compete more on that end, because that's my biggest holdup. I'm still not crazy about the fit. I think if you are taking a center that high, it needs to be somebody that can be that you're drafting for the defense, not to be an anchor, not to be, another hub. You've got a hub in Devin Booker. You've got a guy who plays like he wants to be a hub in Jalen Green. I don't know that you necessarily need another one, but again, if they feel he's the best player and he's got a bright future, then, I'm glad Stephen was able to talk me into it a little bit more.
First of all, I appreciate smart people that break it down to where it's digestible for any level of consumer of basketball.
Yes.
Also, trust people that do the work. I know we've spoken about a handful of prospects over the last couple of weeks, if not the last month. Not our cup of tea. We can do a decent job with it, but to hear him say a lot of the similar things and take it to another level that we've said speaks a lot to the detail that it takes to be good at what he does and what they do at No Ceilings.
I think one of the things I'm really excited about is just that there are so many options, and there are a lot of players at 10, at 29, at 52, at 59 that I can look back on and say, I think that's a win. I think that's a win for the Suns that they're able to draft him. So, of course, we will be live tomorrow. We'll be going live 15 minutes before the draft for the entirety of the first round, and then we'll be going live, of course, on the second round day. That is Thursday. We'll be live at 5. You can check out our NBA draft guide plus Gerald's article over at gophnx.com/join. And remember, we have a diehard discount sale, $36 intro offer here. We are about to transition from the draft more to the Kevin Durant side of things. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're on audio, 5-star reviews go a long, long way. Let's bring in a Cronkite ASU alum, and he's wearing the Forks Up hat right now, a TV reporter out in Houston. We got Chance Johnson in the building. Chance, how you doing, man?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I'm great, man. I'm excited. It's a lot of fun things happening around Houston, including one of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball will be wearing a Rockets uniform. I'm really excited about it, but everything's going well over here, man.
Yeah, I could tell by the smile on your face you're excited. Where were you when the news came down?
You know what's funny? I was at church.
Yeah.
So I was at church, and I usually go to 8 o'clock service. It just so happened this time I decided to go to 11, and so I'm in church, and like we're praising God, and sure enough, my phone dings. I'm like, wait a minute, sorry, 1 second, and so but I had to log back in, of course, for because priorities. But it was a kind of a wild morning, indeed, for sure.
That Shams bomb hit like a gift from above. That's great.
Prayers were answered.
Absolutely.
Well, at least for Rockets fans, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Chance, a lot of the reception here to the trade has obviously been pretty negative, fairly underwhelming from the Sun side of things. On the Rockets side of things, how has the reception been in terms of what the Rockets had to give up to get an all-time great who, fits really well with what the Rockets have in terms of being a top defense, needing a little bit of that offense?
Well, to put into perspective about how Rockets fans feel, I've seen pretty much every highlight of Kevin Durant, wearing whether it's the Suns uniform, Nets, even back to the Thunder, because fans here haven't seen offensive talent like that, of course, since a guy who was wearing a beard, had one, and that was in James Harden. And so, especially when you add him into a mix of a team that just won 50 games, that just was second in the Western Conference and took a Golden State experienced Warriors team to 7 games and was right there and gotten so close, and to now have a guy like Kevin Durant be inserted into this organization and only had to give up Jalen Green, who a lot of fans were cool off of. They were like, you know what, Suns, you can have him, and Dylan Brooks in the number 10 pick. The reception here has been pretty excited, as they continue to build to what they believe is a contending team in the West.
Chance, needless to say, especially coming off of a severely underwhelming playoff showing, his first showing, Jalen Green hasn't been spoken about in the highest of regards from Suns fans, kind of from the outside looking in perspective.
Sure.
But I feel like I'm probably on the contrary on that. I see the potential and opportunity with him. New context, new teammate in Devin Booker in particular, new offense with Jordan Ott as well. What have been your thoughts of Jalen Green in the career best season that he had last season comprehensively? And where do you kind of see his growth taking him as he wears a Phoenix Suns jersey?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm probably higher on Jalen Green than I think a lot of Rockets fans are, just because the talent, it just jumps off the page, man. You see it night in and night out. But then for a Rockets team, though, they had, as I mentioned earlier, high hopes of seeing where this thing could go, and they were willing to build around him and Alperen Şengün. They even showed that recently over last season, or last offseason, I should say, by giving him an extension. But with them getting close, in the playoffs, in that 7 game series, and him being essentially a no-show, I think for most people they agreed it was time to move on, especially with at least how they were using him here in Houston, with him being the primary focal point of their offense. And so, listen, I've seen a lot of growth from Jalen Green, and especially we were able to see that once Ime Udoka took over. And to me, the biggest area of growth that I noticed is when his shots wasn't falling, which can happen at times. And that's the thing about Jalen Green. The highs are high, but the lows, they're just as loud. When the shots weren't falling under Ime Udoka and the growth that I saw, he was still competing on the defensive end. I thought that was really important. But at the end of the day, when it came down to it, and it was a small sample size in the postseason, they needed more from him. And he admitted after game 2, he had a 38-point explosion where the Rockets, they tied the series up in game 2, 1-1. He admitted the lights were bright in game 1. Well, I guess 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, they got bright again, right? And then he just never really was able to perform at the level that the Houston Rockets needed in order to overcome the Warriors in that series. And so, going back to Kevin Durant, you enter in a guy like that who can really just put the ball in the basket, something he's done at an extremely high level. We've all seen his entire career. That's why Rockets fans are excited, because now, that was really the biggest thing. The defense has always been there, even when you lose a Dylan Brooks. And I hope we get a chance to talk about him, because I think he's kind of been talked about as kind of like just like an add-in, but he was really valuable for this Rockets team over the 2 years he was here, from a culture standpoint and of course defensively. But I think overall for Suns fans, there's something to be excited about Jalen Green, because the talent is there. Just the question is, can Phoenix unlock that next to Devin Booker? Is the big question.
Let's talk about Dylan Brooks real quick. You seemed very excited. What do people get wrong about Dylan Brooks?
I think the thing is, he's one of those guys that when you're playing against him, you hate him. But when he's on your team, you love him. And so he really helped transfer, as I mentioned, the culture here in Houston, especially after the Stephen Silas days. I ain't gonna lie, it was rough, man. And the team really didn't have an identity, and they had dogs, even outside of Dylan Brooks, whether it's Tari Eason, whether it's Cam Whitmore, two guys who I know Suns fans were hoping can we get one of them, right? Or Min Thompson, right, who was a named to the first team all defense as well. But they needed a guy who they needed a true veteran, and alongside Ime Udoka, they really helped establish that. And he was a locker room favorite. Guys really gravitated towards Dylan Brooks, and he has a little quirks about him, but offensively as well too. He added some value to the Rockets team. He actually was really their best shooter. From catch and shoot from the three. He has a little bit of a post game now. Sometimes when it goes in, sometimes he's a little bit too shot happy, but he definitely added value to this team. Something that, of course, when he was leaving Memphis, they basically wiped their hands of him and wanted nothing to do with him. But here in Houston, I think he was a valuable asset, and so I am curious to see with them losing him, how they'll respond. Like some of that toughness, that grit that he provided. But he certainly will be an addition to the Suns team, particularly defensively.
All right, we've talked about Jalen Green. We've talked about Dylan Brooks. We've also talked about the guys that the Suns were not able to get, as well as
Yeah.
the picks. The Rockets still own 2 of the Suns picks in 2027, 2029. I'm going to need you to do the Lord's work, Chance, here. Convince our chat that this trade is not that bad. Give us your elevator pitch for why this trade is not that bad.
So listen, I don't want to lie to you guys, right? I don't want to do that, man. So here's the thing. The thing is, it's not. I don't think it's bad with the return. The issue is, I just don't like. Okay, great. You have Jalen Green, who once again I think is talented, and if you can continue to build, there is certainly something there. But the thing is, okay, what does that get you, right? It gets you the Rockets still own your picks. That's the problem. So even if it doesn't pan out, where do you go from here, right? And so that's why there was some rumblings about, look, could they maybe parlay it for Devin Booker later down the line, or originally was it maybe this offseason? Obviously, that won't be the case. But my thing is, like, where does this land you in what you guys know is a really tough Western Conference? Now, of course, this is the offseason really hasn't it's just really starting to begin, and there's a lot more for the Suns to do, and I'm sure that they will do, but I just don't know, right? Like, where does this lead you? Because it's not a championship contender as constructed. And so, and I kind of talked about this earlier. I just don't know if Phoenix is the best place to maximize Jalen Green. He's a guy who needs the ball in his hands. And so, if your point guard is Devin Booker, going to next season, obviously Booker can run the point. But to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's best just being a two, right? A guy who can do both, but hey, go score the basketball. And so, Jalen Green has some experience handling the point. They definitely experimented with that really when he first came in the league, because of course he was really their first building block for the Rockets after the James Harden trade. So Rafael Stone, he came from the Daryl Morey tree. He was there with James Harden throughout those days. So they wanted to see, hey, can we have another a ball dominant guard like we saw with James Harden? It didn't really work out, and then you had Kevin Porter Jr. there as well too, and we saw how that panned out. But like I said, I just don't know if Phoenix is the best place right now to maximize him. I will say Jalen Green played his best basketball when LP wasn't on the floor. When the floor spacing was a lot more open. That's when he was having those. If you remember last year in 2024, his March there, where he was like the Western Conference Player of the Month, right? There's swings where he's averaged 28 points a game on high efficiency. Maybe that might be your best case scenario. The question is, can he be consistent with it? And my concern is, if the team is, let's just say, mid, will the defensive effort go down as well when you don't have Ime Udoka pushing you? Where Ime would bench you a lot of times, right? Like they tried to make it work with Jalen offensively, and they try to have him on the floor late in games, even if he didn't have it going. But if he stopped playing hard, he would sit him. Same thing with LP, right? We saw that. And so my concern is, if that culture is not in place, and we'll see under the new head coach who's there, what will ultimately end up happening with Jalen Green? Can you guys maximize that potential? And that's a question that we'll have to see over the months to come.
Excellent insight. Horrendous elevator pitch to make us feel better.
Yeah, I'm not buying. Okay, we have a question in the chat, and obviously, Houston and you guys, you're riding high. You got KD, right? The last 2 stops for KD, they haven't exactly turned out exactly how people expected when he got there. Plus, there is this extension looming. Do you have any concerns about trading a 23-year-old and a 29-year-old and a top 10 pick for KD at this point?
Nope, not at all. The reason being is because of what they had to give up, right? Sorry. I told you, I didn't want to lie to you, right? Look, I'm with your Cronkite. You know what? One thing as journalists, we gotta be truthful, right? But
Minimize
seriously,
harm,
I'm
Chance. You're not minimizing harm right now, brother.
Look, I'm sorry, right? But I'll say this. I think obviously when you add Kevin Durant, you have championship expectations and aspirations. The thing is, I don't think it like if it doesn't work out where at the end of the the next couple of seasons, they're not holding the Larry O'Brien. I think it's okay because just having a guy as talented as Kevin Durant and has experience, as KD, and you put him around some of their young core that will still be here when Kevin Durant is gone, whether it's Min Thompson or a guy who I'm really excited to see him with, Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, Reed Shepard, who still hasn't seen the floor, Cam Whitmore, and I just still can't believe you guys couldn't get.
All right.
Stop, right? But with that being said, though, even if it doesn't end up in a championship, I think you can't put a price on what he adds to the team. And so, as you mentioned, it didn't work out in Phoenix and it didn't work out in Brooklyn, but this is the most depth he's had around him. And so he's coming into a situation to where, once again, he's flanked by some really good perimeter defenders, Tari Eason, Amin Thompson, Jabari Smith, who can guard 2 through 5. Even LP, we saw a jump in him defensively. So really all he has to do is just come in and get buckets. And something that he does very well. And especially, when we get to the postseason and the Rockets, they struggle to score against Golden State. And you just have a guy who just knows how to put the ball in the basket. That's why I'm not concerned. And there's reports that he's willing to potentially take a slight pay cut to maybe make things work. We'll see if that actually happens. But no concern there, particularly because they didn't have to give up the future first from Phoenix. And I'm not going to be a dead horse here. You guys know the return there. So I'll leave it at that.
My last one for you, Chance, is back to the Jalen Green part of it all. Last season, he took more pull-up threes than at any point in his career so far. And I'm curious about how that's going to translate to the Suns and what Jordan Ott is going to ask from him as far as volume there. But with Udoka last season, did you feel like that was something that he asked for him to take more of because the team needed it? Or did you feel like that was more so Jalen basically broadening his horizons as far as his skill development?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think for Ime Udoka, his calling card is more so on the defensive end, and I think that's why we saw Houston, defensive metrics definitely at the top of the league there. And so he allowed Şengün, particularly Alperen Şengün and Jalen Green, to kind of get their game off. And so I actually thought that he lived on one of those pull-up threes a little bit too much for my liking, especially when you consider what his best skill set is getting downhill, right? He's so athletic. He's really great in transition. And I think that's where we saw, as I mentioned earlier, his best production was when LP wasn't in the lineup, whether he was hurt or whatever the case might be, where they were just running. And so, that worked out. But, my concerns was that how would it translate in the playoffs, right? When teams get back, right? And there's a little bit more focus on you, and we saw how that panned out. And so, I think it would help him to get to the free throw line a little bit more, and I think his body control, his strength, just overall physical maturity, and that's the thing. He is still only 23, and so once again, I think there is a lot to like about Jalen Green. The question is, like, will it translate to winning alongside with this current roster that the Suns have? And once again, I'm not for sure on that.
And I'll say real quick, that's something that I always bring up too is when a guard that is downhill oriented finally gets a 3-point shot off the dribble, there's a itch to want to get that shot off as much as you possibly can. We saw it a lot with Anthony Edwards early this
Anthony
past
Edwards.
season.
Yep.
But the thing is, when Ant finally got the balance back to where, okay, I can get to this, but use it as a counterpunch and not as the point I'm dictating with, that's when we got back to a level where he was a top 5 player at his best this season.
Chance, there are a lot of people in the chat who want to know where they can find you so that they could talk crap if KD doesn't work out in Houston. You want to let the people know where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on Twitter and TikTok, which actually I'm making a little bit more of a push, especially on content on TikTok at Chancellor TV. And before you guys kill me, remember, I am a Sun Devil. Unless you're a Arizona Wildcats fan, then we know you guys are natural born haters. Chancellor TV. Ooh, trade. Ooh,
Oh,
Oh, Boston,
Porzingis.
Atlanta, and Brooklyn.
Wow.
Wow.
Kristaps
Ooh, what is it?
Porzingis.
I
Wow.
couldn't see it
So
fully. It's
Porzingis and
Porzingis
a
to.
second round pick to the Hawks, Terrence Mann and the number 22 pick to the Nets, and George Niang and a second rounder to the Celtics.
So the Celtics traded Porzingis for Niang and a second rounder.
Ooh,
They want to save that,
That is
money.
interesting. That is interesting.
that's nasty.
Jalen Brown next, maybe Derek White. And actually, Derek White is a name who has been kind of linked to the Rockets, potentially as another guy
Don't
who
you have
could
enough?
help fill out this roster.
Aren't you like? Come on, can't you just be satisfied? You haven't you done enough, Chance? You got Kevin Durant, and you didn't have to give up anybody. You don't need Derek White too.
That's why.
Who-
That's why what he said is right. When you don't allow a team to get Kevin Durant for just that, because now they have
not my
opportunity.
fault.
In thought they have
I didn't do
opportunity at least in prospect with Eason and they're
One more
set
thing I
up to
want to
make another move if they want to. I will just say
Absolutely.
if the Rockets end up with Amen Thompson and Derek White to go with their defense,
Come on.
Ooh, child.
Come on.
Ooh, child. One more thing I do want to add really quickly. You also have to remember how this thing happened, right? Because they traded, they got the picks from Phoenix by swapping with the Nets, by giving the Nets their picks back from the James Harden trade. So it was Rafael Stone banking and praying on the downfall of of the Phoenix Suns, and sure enough, he got it. And here we are today.
So
So
we start and
blame
end with
Rafael Stone,
praying,
not
which
me.
is something that I'm going to need to do a lot of over the next couple of years. Chance, appreciate you, man. Good to catch up, even if it stung a little bit. Wishing you personally the best of luck in Houston. The team, not so much at this point, but we do appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join us over here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate
I
it.
appreciate it. That is Chance Johnson. You can find him at Chancellor TV on Twitter and on TikTok. We're going to hit a break, and then let's just give some quick thoughts on this trade and what the Celtics are doing and maybe how this impacts the Suns right after this. I did not love what Chance was saying during all of that. In fact, I kind of hated it. But I do love our friends over at Bet365. And if you're betting on the Houston Rockets' downfall, well, maybe you just like putting some money on some NBA action. No more finals, but now we get into the offseason. And as we get into next season, of course, we'll be doing our betting competition here at Bet365. But don't worry. It's not just basketball over at Bet365. Of course, baseball season is in the middle of its giant swing right now, pun intended as well, and football is building up, and whatever the moment, it's never ordinary over at Bet365. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5 win or lose. Sign up, use code PHNX365, deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 plus and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. And Suns are going to be building back up from the floor here, and hopefully their floors look as good as Empire today. Not just $350 off. I usually bury the lead there just for listening to us, but you also get actual experts with your flooring the same way that we brought in experts for you today on this show. You want to bring in flooring experts. You get clear, upfront, all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. You can get a same-day in-home estimate. Get your measurements for your home with your furniture and everything that you need answered, they will answer for you. So schedule that free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. PHNX listeners can receive a $350 off discount when using promo code PHNX. That's right, $350 off discount with code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHNX for full details. I love Chance. I've known Chance for a long time. I don't think I've ever wanted to punch Chance more than when he answered the any worries about Kevin Durant question. Any takeaways from our first two guests before we do a quick trade reacts and get out if you're on a Tuesday before the draft?
Not really, man. Like we got a lot of good prospects, and the chat was hating every part of that Rockets interview. So let's move on.
there are hashtag options for the Suns with the picks with the picks they have at this moment. And I'll leave that at that, and we can kind of segue to this trade talk.
I will say this. I liked what he said about Dylan Brooks, specifically about the grittiness, the leadership, the culture setting, and all of that. So happy to hear that. The rest of it, not great for the Suns. But it paints a picture of what's going on. It's a perspective from another side. So I appreciate both of our guests for joining us. The Boston Celtics pulled off a great trade, by all means, last night. And this one feels like purely money-saving moves. Instant reactions to the Celtics trading Kristaps for Georges Niang in a second.
I get what they're doing. I get new ownership. I get the Tatum injury means you kind of have to change things up significantly and we knew they were going to try to shed those 2 salaries. It's still gross for them. Like, that's still a very bad return. Trae Young, Kristaps Porzingis, pick and pops.
His first,
it's gonna be fun.
His first pop option. He's been the best pick and roll point guard in the NBA the past 5 years. He just got an elite pop option.
Good for Atlanta.
How often he's going to be available, that remains to be seen. But Porzingis having Jalen Johnson, Zachary Risachet, and Dyson Daniels defending around him. He's not a bad defender in his own right, but having that is very similar to the template that got him a championship the season before last with Boston.
And it's a team that's losing Clint Capella most likely now in free agency.
Onyeka
Okongwu was there.
They can spend time together.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it was Capella or Okongwu. Now it's Porzingis and Okongwu or Risachet or Jalen Johnson. I mean, giving up Terrence Mann, who's fine, Georges Niang, who's fine, and a second-round pick. And I get there are some current concerns with Kristaps, and you don't know what's going on with his health, so we can't speak on it like too much, but I can't say that there's no concern there considering how you saw him in the playoffs. But if you're going to trade for him, this feels about as buy low could possibly be. And if this works for Atlanta in an Eastern Conference where Tyrese Halliburton is injured, where Damian Lillard is injured, and where Jason Tatum is injured, Atlanta might be, if everything works out, which is a big if, a top 4, top 3 seed in the East next year.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Rock, I mean, not as far as the Rock, as far as the Hawks goes, for Quinn Snyder, that's big time for him to run the type of offensive system that he's been trying to get them towards. I think them also having so many options lineup-wise to where you can mitigate Porzingis' minutes or you can mitigate the injuries by scaling back his minutes and doing so effectively because of the pieces you have around him. I think that's probably the biggest piece in all of that.
Can we talk about the Nets, who now own number 8, number 19, number 22, number 26, number 27, and number 36?
They're not keeping all of those.
I want them to use all of them just for fun.
They
Something
are not
to keep an eye on.
keeping all of those. It's what I'm getting at. They're not keeping them all. I didn't think they were keeping the ones they already had. They add 22 to the pot.
So do we think that this helps out Phoenix? I mean, Claxton, Cam Johnson, there's been links there. Obviously, the Suns have the 10 pick. It's been widely known that the Nets want to move on and up into the 10th, into the lottery again. Do we feel like this could be the move before the move with the Suns?
Potentially. I mean, more flexibility in terms of trade options does not hurt if you're talking about, Claxton and or Cam Johnson coming to Phoenix. Brad Beal and number 10 going to Brooklyn. It's a lot to give up a top 10 pick, but if the Nets now have more picks, they are later on in the draft, obviously. Like, I don't know that you're going to get 19 out of that exchange. Yeah. But now they have 22, 26, 27, and 36 to play ball with. Maybe there's something there. I don't know. Something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, that was it for me. I wasn't sure if the Suns would want to go with one of those later picks, 26 and 27 in particular, in terms of a pick swap, even if you are getting 2 players that would immediately start for you. I do believe that 22 is a whole lot more in that ballpark range that would appease the Suns in a pick swap scenario, while also getting the likes of Johnson and Claxton that I kind of been speaking to for a little minute now. So I feel like it makes more sense with 22 involved. I don't imagine Brooklyn keeps probably 3 of those picks going in the first round, going into tomorrow's draft. So
I mean, they have a lot of room on the roster, right? Like, they can use a lot of those picks.
I think they had the most, well, maybe not necessarily after this trade, but they had the most cap space in the league going into this offseason.
Real quick here before we wrap up. Bradley Beal for Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson works money-wise, right? Now, depending on how you feel about this draft, we've talked about there's a lot of movement, and some of the guys the Suns have been interested in have also been kind of mocked to the late teens, maybe even early 20s. If you give up 10 with Bradley Beal and you get Claxton, Johnson, and one other pick in the 20s, Do you do that? Because that's 2 starting caliber players and you still keep a first round pick. You get off of Bradley Beal's contract, but you do give up number 10.
Yeah, I think you might. I think you might just not like giving up 10 hurts. I won't lie. And there are some prospects I really like there, but I think Claxton is a better player than what center you might get at number 10. I like Cam Johnson on the wing for this team, especially coming off a career year. Going from 10 to 22 kind of hurts a little bit, but like we've been saying, outside of the top 7 or 8 guys, from then on, it's kind of like the rest of the first round. It's, I don't want to say splitting hairs, but it's beauty in the eye of the beholder a little bit. So I would potentially do that. And somebody asked why the Nets would make this trade when they already have number 8, why they would trade for number 10. There have been reports that they're actively pursuing a second lottery pick. So that would be the reason there.
It takes overtime.
Well, yeah, we'll head to overtime here right now. Appreciate you watching on TV. Let's keep things rolling, though, just for a second here. Again, we'll be live for an entire first round of the draft tomorrow. If anything does happen, we'll be live for it. I think, Stephen, for Brooklyn's perspective, you take on some dead salary for a couple of years. And sure, you're giving up Claxton and Johnson. I don't think either of those two are on the timeline that they're trying to set. And you do move up to the 10th pick, and you have all your other picks as well. You're basically going full youth movement with 2 big swings. And maybe if you're Brooklyn, you package 8 and 10 together, and then you can move up and maybe get into the top 5 and whatnot with more capital behind you. To me, this move, I'm not saying it makes the Bradley Beal or the 10 pick or Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson. Like, it's going to happen, but it does make a little more sense to me.
Yeah, it makes it make more sense for both teams. And I think for Brooklyn, they have options on the table. I think the point where you talk about packaging at 8 and 10, I think you call back San Antonio and you ask about number 2, see what you can do there with anything. Maybe that involves Cam Johnson in a certain extent. Maybe he ends up in San Antonio. And then Brooklyn ends up getting Dylan Harper, who's someone they've been high on, as high as anybody. So I don't know. There's options on the table. I feel like there's going to be multiple moves that happen before tomorrow's draft.
Yeah, just so you know, the Celtics are now out of the second apron with that move. Bismack Biyombo in the chat, breaking news, says OMG, Porzingis got traded. Thank you, Bismack Biyombo. We appreciate you. Hope everything's going well with you, Busy. Okay, that's going to wrap things up here. Let us know what you think might happen with Brooklyn. Does this unlock a Bradley Beal trade? Drop a comment, leave a like, and let us know. Of course, we will be live tomorrow at 4:45 Arizona time. That is 15 minutes before the draft. We will go live for the entirety of the first round. Even if the Suns trade all their draft picks, we're still going to go live for the whole first round. That's right. We'll be here. And then guess what? Thursday, we're also going to go live that time at 5 through the entirety of the second round. So make sure you're subscribed to PHNX Sports. Make sure that you like this video. Turn notifications on as well. We have you covered with everything possible under the sun with the Suns. You can follow us at PHNX_Suns on Twitter and on Instagram. We appreciate Ayrton behind the Mac making all the magic happen with so many moving pieces today. You can follow him at Freckled Mamba. You can follow Gerald at Gerald Bourguet. You can follow Stephen, don't call him Steve, and one of 2 Stevens on this show at Stephen PG3. That is Stephen with the PH. You can follow me at ErikRuby. We'll be back tomorrow for the draft, and whatever comes with it, we'll talk to you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.